Okay, so right here I'm just sketching out my pattern for this Christmas lantern. Usually what used to tell my students that if they want to get dinged for copying somebody else's design is to basically look at someone else's design, close your eyes, put that design away, and then draw what you remember seeing. And more than likely it's not going to come out the same, so you're going to be safe as far as taking somebody else's design. I'm not going to end up with this much detail, but just so that I get the outline of the shape, I need to see it, so I put in a lot of detail. There's not going to be quite that much in.
All right, so this is probably the most difficult thing to put, the blade in and the blade down on this scroll saw. This is a Delta scroll saw that I was actually given to me by a colleague who had it at home and wasn't using it. So I normally use my old Craftsman, but I thought I'd do a video or two showing me use this one right here. Now the good thing about this one is that it is variable, so you can adjust the speed for what you're cutting and how you're cutting, or if you're a beginner and you don't want to cut very fast, that's what this is good for. The same thing applies as with the other scroll saws that I've shown you guys on my YouTube channel. I am cutting a 3/4 inch piece, some scrap material I had left over from the fence we built earlier. This scroll saw does a good job. I just haven't used it very often. And, I'm cutting this wood, which is a soft wood, so it's doing a fairly good job of cutting it. Cutting with a scroll saw takes practice, and if you haven't used it for a while, you can get out of sync with how the blade is cutting, or depending on the blade you use, you're going to get a different type of cut. This is a pretty thin blade with lots of teeth, so it's giving me a clean cut, but it is still hard to control, and you want to allow the blade to cut. You don't want to rush it or push too hard. Because of the size of the blade, they have a tendency to break or snap, and if you put too much pressure on the blade and you don't allow the blade to cut, it'll start burning. And then also they're not that strong, so they can just snap at any time. Can make some pretty small cuts on this. The only issue again is that taking the blade out can be difficult at times, and putting the blade into the area you're cutting, especially if you're cutting a 3/4 inch piece of wood, because you have to bend the blade in some way to get it there. And the thing is, if you try to make too tight of a cut, of course you're putting a lot of tension on the blade. So I usually make a straight cut and then come back and cut that piece out. It just works out a lot better if you're not trying to turn the blade on a dime. And there are some blades that will do that, but those blades have a tendency to give you less control. So getting a straight line with those type of blades can be difficult. And in some sense, like this one, you want to get a straight line. Again, I had made some Halloween lanterns unfortunately, I made them, like Halloween was on Friday, and I didn't finish making them until Halloween Eve. So I didn't have a chance to really put them out there as far as being for sale. But I'm going to do these Christmas ones and then put them all out together and see if, I can get them sold. Now, although I've been doing woodworking for a long time, this is actually my first attempt to actually start a woodworking business. Being in the classroom for so many years, it really is taking your time and allowing the blade to cut when you're doing this. So, and here's the process for taking the blade out and putting it back on. This is the tensioner, and you just loosen it. That loosens the blade even more, and then this tiny little knob right here will take the blade off. And to put the blade in, you kind of have to, it just seems more difficult than the Craftsman, and then getting this blade to where it is absolutely tight and it's not going to pop off, can be difficult. All right, now
All right, so this little knob right here, that is to basically tighten the blade on here. Now this is a pretty thin blade. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it is pretty thin. You can barely see it right there. So it's kind of difficult to put the blade in and ensure that it's tight and it's not going to pop off with you while you're cutting. So I'm going to back up a little bit. But this little knob right here loosens and then tightens down on the blade. And then this lever over here, I guess, locks it down. And then right here on top is the tension lever. And then it has a similar setup down below to lock in the blade. So what I don't like about this is that this right here doesn't come up. It's just fixed. So basically you've got to have to kind of squish your project, depending on what you're doing, and get the blade into where the hole that you've pre-cut, pre-drilled for that. And then the process is to get the blade in there, tighten it down with this little nut, which is, it's kind of difficult. And then hopefully you've got it to where this will lock the blade in there. And then put the tension in, and then it stays on there. Okay? So if you go down right there, perfect. On and off switch, this is the speed control right here. And that works pretty good. So if I turn the saw on, you can hear it moving, and you can see down here that it's actually moving up and down. So if I turn this knob, it actually goes faster. I'm going to put it, it says around 1650. And then I'm going to back this up. So I can get, all right.
There you go. And see, that's what I'm talking about. If you don't get that down in there right, it's going to pop off. And, you know, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. If you see on my videos, I did a demonstration for beginners on a king scroll saw that I used to have at school. And the thing I really like is that this isn't a fixed arm, and it can move up and gives you the ability to put your project inside, where this you have to kind of really maneuver, and it takes some effort to actually get the blade to stay in there. And for some reason, I can't imagine why, but this blade is no longer fitting, and it's probably because it broke. And that's actually what happened. So as you can see down in there, that the process is the same. And that's why I don't use this scroll saw very often, because it really is a bear to get a blade on and off. I have to get some pliers. So let's see how that works. Hopefully the sound's coming out okay. I've got the dust collection system going, and I just wanted to see if it comes out okay. I'll go ahead and leave it on. If not, I'm going to have to turn it off and then re-record. And I'm really pushing the limits as far as this tiny blade and how it's cutting. If I was cutting like a 1/8 inch piece of plywood, something a little different than this 3/4 inch piece of redwood, it's really pushing the limits as far as being able to cut without breaking the blade or snapping the blade. So I have to take my time and make sure that the blade is actually cutting as I feed it into my cut. There you go. So that seemed to work out okay, and I've got one more cut to make on this. Right over here. See how that works.
right here, I'm just using my table router, which I connected to my table saw extension table to kind of get it out of the way and just make it more convenient than having it on a separate table. I'm just rounding over the top and bottom just to give it a little bit better look than the ones I did in the past.